Hi, and welcome to Dear Art Producer. I am your host, Heather Elder, and today is October 2nd, 2024, and we are joined by Vice President Executive Producer Mindy Miller from McCann Health. In her role, Mindy produces a wide array of projects from development through deliverables across multimedia platforms. Whether it's producing independently or managing a team, she masterfully balances creative integrity with financial responsibility. A core strength of hers is being big picture focused while maintaining the smallest of details while working multiple projects. She has worked on accounts such as Huggies, American Express, and Hasbro. And at McCann Health, she's happy to produce campaigns that play a meaningful role in people's lives. Welcome, Mindy. Hello. How are you today?
Hello, Heather. Thank you. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Not only are you a guest, but I have gotten to see you twice or connect with you twice in a week. We had our dinner last week. I'm getting to chat with you today. It's very exciting.
Very exciting.
Lots of Mindy in my world. So thank you. I love it. I always love to start the podcast just kind of getting to know my guests a little bit and hear a little bit about what got them interested in art production, what their background was, how they ended up where they are. Everybody's paths are a little bit different, and this job is so obscure before you know about it, right? It's when we're in it, it's all we think about, and think everybody knows what we're doing, but there's so many people out there that don't know about it. So I'm wondering how you came about learning about art production and how you got where you are.
Well, my whole career basically has been kind of backing into my positions. I sort of say the universe has, kind of put me in a path that I'm, grateful for. I started out, many years ago when they were still quote unquote secretaries. And I kind of knew that I couldn't be a fitness trainer for the rest of my life. It was a hard gig and, you age out of it. And so at the ripe old age of 23, I thought, I need to, figure something else out for my future. And through a friend, I got a job at a very cool, small little agency as the secretary to the creative director. And just, loved it, loved the environment, loved everything about it. And I started off as, after that, they promoted me to music coordinator. Then I became a music producer. And then by that time I was married and started having babies and took a job on the vendor side as an EP of a music production company. And I did music, radio, all kinds of audio. And then a client asked me if I would work on, she was desperate, needed a producer for animation. And I was like, I don't know anything about it. And she's like, it doesn't matter. I need hands. So I said, okay. So animation production turned into broadcast production, which then turned into art production and produce everything. So, it wasn't like I had a plan or I knew anybody in the business. I came from a very creative family. So I was always comfortable in that element. And seriously, one thing just led to another and here I am. And I'm super grateful.
Well, it just sounds like production, right? One thing leads to another all the time in production. So after doing so many of these podcasts and hearing everybody's backstories, it's pretty much the same thing. Somebody tried something, ended up loving it, loved being in the environment, the creativity, the, chaos of it all, and then just kept taking role after role and learning more and more and more. And then all of a sudden, here we are in 2024, where secretaries became art buyers, became art producers, right? And integrated producers. And now you have to know everything about everything. So
I had a mentor who, when he was trying to talk me into production, I was like, oh, I don't know. I always saw myself as like, an art director or a copywriter or something like that. And he said, no, Mindy, I see you as a creative with control issues, which means you should be a producer. And I thought, oh my God, that is so spot on.
That's so funny. Oh my gosh. So I had a mentor once when I was I knew I wanted to leave my account executive position at an ad agency. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And they were like, oh, you'd be so good as a rep. And I was like, oh God, I can't be a rep. I'm like, every time the reps come in the agency, nobody likes them. I'm like, they just like their food and then they get annoyed. And here I am doing that role. And I'm always so afraid that nobody likes me. So I'll always bring good food, although not anymore, but I'll throw a good party or take someone out to a good dinner to make sure they like me.
Well, exactly. I know. I can assure you, your personality and your professional prowess put you at the top of your game. So, and
thank you, Mindy.
So, yes, exactly.
After all these years, thank you. I appreciate it. I guess I wouldn't be doing it anymore if I was still worried, but I appreciate that. So, okay, so tell me what you're known for on your team.
Well, probably my irreverent comments behind the scenes in team chats. No, I don't know. I think probably my, breadth of experience after all these years. And also I think that I'm a real problem solver. So what I lack maybe in process, which is ever changing, and all the, paperwork and all that kind of stuff, which is not my strong suit. I think I make up for in really finding creative solutions. That's what sort of lights me up every day. As much as those kind of challenges are, sort of, they weigh you down, they kind of light me up. I like to be able to figure it out. Like, oh, that's a good challenge. I'm gonna figure out how to do that. So I think that's probably what I'm mostly known for. Making weird things happen.
Yeah. It's so important. I mean, think about what comes through our inbox every day. It's something new, something different. Our job is different every day. I'm constantly saying that, I'm still learning after all these years, right? There are still new things to learn. There's still people to learn from, and there's every day I feel like and it's not that you're solving a problem, like it's an issue. It's more like, there's this creative challenge that's like been brought to us. And now we have to assemble a team and ask the right questions and, get all the other questions answered so that, everybody can kind of put their best foot forward.
Yeah, that's, you hit the nail on the head. I feel like there's not a lot of jobs that I'm aware of where regardless of how much experience you have, that there's still so much to learn. And I love that. I love that. There's always emerging technologies. I always say that no two producers produce alike, so it's always kind of cool to see what other producers, how they handle situations and, what resources they pull from and, constantly learning. Love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so what do you think would be helpful for artists and reps to understand better about your job?
That's a great question because I really feel that sometimes agency people need to understand a little bit better what the artists and reps go through. And I'm not just like blowing smoke up your, tush. I kind of feel that. I feel like the agency experience is much, better known than the artist's experience. It's like everybody knows, clients can be difficult and we have challenging budgets and challenging, schedules and that kind of thing. But I don't know that agencies really understand what it's like to be an artist who's trying to make a living in a commercial world and selling something that is so personal to who they are. So I kind of feel like, agencies need to understand that a little bit better.
I really appreciate that. I think you're 100% right. It is very difficult on this side. The at-bats are fewer and farther between. So every job is, more important than ever. And I agree. I do think that and the agency structure has changed so much over the years as well. I think there's not a lot of space and time for agency people to really understand the process. It's kind of a to-do list item and, we're pushing things through a channel to get approved by a client. And there's so much to understand. I think it is, to be fair, it's difficult if they're not the ones kind of managing the process. So I appreciate you saying that. And I'm sure you do everything you can to help people understand that. But you're right, it's hard.
Yeah, it's like my fiduciary responsibility is to my agency and, basically our client. So I understand that. But at the same time, we're salaried employees for the most part. We've got multiple projects happening. And, artists, most of the time it's like one job or another can make or break their, you know, their year, their month, whatever. So I feel like we need to kind of be very, sort of serious when we are reaching out to vendors and artists and trying to figure out, what's what. I mean, everybody makes a choice. It's like, I guess you could say that it's a choice they've made to be on that side, choice we've made to be on this side. But I think knowing that sometimes opportunities can come and, creative phone calls can be had. They're on the top 3 and they always come in second. Well, second doesn't garner $1, it doesn't.
Right.
So I try to keep everybody sort of mindful of that. And I have to say, I work with a lot of creatives who get it, but I work with people too that just don't understand that process, or they take it for granted or forget.
Yeah. And I think our industry is set up for that too, because we move so quickly.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And I think, you and I were fortunate to be in the business at a time when we didn't always triple bid.
Right.
And that was really, we took that for granted. So that was a pretty amazing time, not because you got every job that you bid, but because there was like time and care that was put into the choice from the beginning. And then I'm sure there were lots of other people they talked to before that was decided, or work they reviewed. But once it was decided you were going to work with that person, you pretty much made it work, and you collaborated and you came up with ideas together, as opposed to the situation nowadays where, there's a lot of work that goes into figuring out who the 3 you're going to bid are, but then you bid them and you don't have the time to have those same kind of conversations with all 3 people. And then all 4 of those people have to like create their treatments and do the calls and do the estimates. And then you, Mindy, have to like review all that stuff and share it with your team. And they have to, it's just like, it's become just ballooned. The process has become so much. There's just not as much time anymore for people to kind of like take a second and understand.
Right. And let's face it, the process of triple bidding is a little artificial. I think it came from, sort of basically the corporate edict that that it's keeping everybody honest or fair or something like that. And I don't know, it's a little artificial, and it's not as though you triple bid and you just go with the lowest bid and that's why you're doing it. It's right. You're often not that. So,
well, the triple bid's really interesting in the fact that, like, okay, say you tell me your budget's $250,000. I'm going to come in as close to that $250,000 as possible, right? So I'm assuming your other 2 bidders are probably going to do the same. Now, if they can't, obviously they're not going to. But I think you can get to that process without having to triple bid, right? Like if it's artist A that you want to use, you can tell that person you want to use them, get them to come in as close to your budget as possible. And if they're $100,000 over, then like, okay, I can't afford you. I am going to have to go somewhere else, kind of thing.
Right, exactly. Or the other side of the coin, if somebody knows they're getting the job, and it's just a matter of fine tuning the details about it. I find that vendors want to, they'll sort of bend over backwards to make it work because they know eventually they're going to get it. And and it's much more of a collaborative effort from the beginning. I can't tell you, also, in this day and age of trying to that we have to count every hour on our timesheets with jobs and this and that. So much of our budget is spent in that process of triple bidding. And I myself, oh my God, if we just had that money to put in a budget for the actual shoot, how great would that be? So.
Well, and that's such an interesting, like you said it early on, the idea of process. There's so many layers now and so much process that goes with the job that it really does take away from the creativity part of it and, also the budget part of it. I remember having a conversation with somebody at Leo Burnett years and years ago when I think they were my first experience with firm bid. And I was like, oh my gosh, wait a second. What is this firm bid thing you're explaining to me? And they explained the idea that the amount of time and money and effort that has to go into reconciling an invoice against an estimate. We did the analysis and realized it's a waste of time and money. So here's the protocol for a firm bid. And we're going to, the amount of money we're going to save, even if the artist comes in under on the job and they get to keep it, it doesn't matter because it's still savings compared to what it cost for us to reconcile the job.
Right.
And I thought, wow, that's really, really fascinating. And I feel like maybe this triple bid process needs some sort of analysis as well to figure out, is it worth it?
Right.
Or even bid two people, or have creative calls and decide who you want to bid. Right.
That's what I like. That's what I like, because you can see someone's work, but personalities come into play. It's like dating or anything else.
Yep.
It's like, there's a ton of talented people out there. You want to make a connection, and I could have a connection with one photographer who's great, and I might not have a connection with another one who's great for whatever reason, or the team might not. So I love that approach. Let's talk to a bunch of people. It's a phone.
Yes.
It's a phone call.
Yeah.
It's a small investment considering what the outcome could be, and then figure out, okay, let's talk about who we want to bid here, and then bid that person. I like that.
Bid two instead of three, because I do appreciate there are timelines sometimes, right, where you might have a second hold from an artist, or you might also don't have enough time if they can't meet the budget or something like that, right? Like I get that you might need to have like two parallel paths going.
Right. Yeah.
But I like the idea of just having the process be a bit more thoughtful, right? Not this like, well, we're supposed to triple bid, so let's triple bid. Like, well, how about we choose two? Or how about in this case, I think we can do it with just one kind of thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let me ask you a question. And these days, are most of your bids firm?
I'd say maybe we're getting close to 50%.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes they're, I can have a run where they're all firm and others where they're, not. I think it depends, pharma actually sometimes tends to be firm, where you'd think in a industry where everything's so protocol and process driven, it wouldn't be.
Right.
But yeah. And it also goes by agency sometimes, And there are certain agencies those are the arrangements they work out with their clients as part of their agreements when they, sign on as agency of record. So it really depends. But I know the art producers like it. We like it.
Yeah.
It also makes people really spell out a scope, right? Like someone like you take process, and your agencies that you work at, process is very important. So I will get a spec sheet from you. It will be very detailed. It will include the usage and the number of shots. You will tell me the budget. We will spec out the post-production and the deliverables. Like you and I will know absolutely every single thing that's going on and is required. There are people who shoot me an email with just a few little details and need a bit. And that's really frustrating, because then I'm going back to them asking a million questions, and then I make assumptions, and like it's not 100% accurate. When you have a firm bid, that scope has to be fully baked, because I am giving you a number saying that I can do this. Now, if we come out of scope and you ask for something different, obviously
an overage, right?
It's an overage. But it is in everybody's best interest to make sure that those spec details are, very clear ahead of time. So there's so much value in having a firm bid over not. And then sometimes in those firm bids, there are things that you don't know about. Like, at this point, let's put travel on a separate estimate or post on a separate estimate, because those things, sometimes vary. When COVID was a thing, sometimes we put that on a separate estimate. So yeah, but I always ask, I'm always hopeful, because it's not a place where I'm looking to like make money on. It's like, it just saves time and energy and effort,
So let me ask you a question. So for cost plus bids, do you find that you're usually under?
Budgets are such that there's never enough money. There's never a surplus.
Yeah.
So every job we're bidding is like to the T, So it's pretty rare that if we're under, even on a firm bid, if we're under, it's usually a few $1,000s. Like,
right.
and also the firm bid gives us a little bit of playing room sometimes because, if it's a firm bid, we'll sometimes out a little bit of extra money just in case the budget allows, which is also hard. And then when you call me and you're like, oh, the client needs a ride, let's get a van for them to go to the airport kind of thing. Like if there's money, we'll cover it.
Right.
We're not looking to hold on to our surplus. I mean, yes, it would be ideal to hold on to the surplus, but we are client service oriented and we, want the job to be the best that it can be. And on those cost plus jobs, there's just not a lot of, any job, there's just not a lot of excess.
I know, right? It's like, I feel like, the days of, the agency producer padding, the production company producer padding is like, padding's getting smaller and smaller. And everybody's profits are smaller and smaller.
Right. So So if you think about it from a financial point of view, if you are going to do a cost plus bid because you're afraid that you're going to give away too much money, there's not enough money in the beginning to give away. Right. So then think about your time management. And on the other end, how much time as an agency do you save? Billable hours are you saving that you could put towards something else? Right? I don't know. Maybe the agency wants to bill those hours. I have no idea. Yeah. But, it just seems like especially with vendors that you trust. Right?
Yeah.
Like you and I would produce a job and know full well, I fully trust what you're saying. You would fully trust what my producer and I and my studio would tell you.
Right.
And together we would figure it out.
Exactly. It's like, I think that, it's always important to be collaborative and feel like you're, part of the same team. But I think it's more important now than ever for that.
Yeah, I agree.
It is production. Things will happen. Things will
always things do happen
more. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the kind of projects that are coming across your desk right now. Mm-hmm. What kind of things are your clients asking you for? And by that, I mean, is it motion? Is it stills? Is it animation? Is it CGI? What sort of projects are they asking you to do?
So basically all of the above, but it's interesting on this, at this time of year, fourth quarter, everybody has extra money that they need to spend by the end of the year. So, everybody is coming out of the woodwork with projects. It's kind of insane, but it's the way it is every year. So just for instance, right now, photo shoot with, here you go. It's a photo shoot with a video component, or is it a video shoot with a photo component? We're kind of going back and forth on that right now. It was supposed to be a continuation of the original campaign we shot last year, but now it's turning more into a content shoot as opposed to, we did mainly portraits and things like that last year. So, kind of that's up in the air in the moment. I'm working on a patient shoot, that's definitely a video with a photo component. Let's see, I've got a sort of photo reel animation that I'm working on for dosing, instruction for use kind of video. Working on an audio experience for a convention or a couple conventions, just you name it. I feel like it's coming down the pike at the moment.
Yeah, it is a busy time of year for that. I had a roster meeting the other day on Zoom with my group, and I was saying okay, everybody, here we are. It's the end of September. We don't have a lot of time before the end of the year to move the needle. And by the end of the year, I mean, mid-November, if we're lucky, right? And keep in mind that election week, nothing's happening that week. So, everyone I think at least for a couple of days, work is going to be, at a standstill. So we have, till right before Thanksgiving to really move the needle on what's happening. If you're going to be booked on something, we got to get the word out that you're available. You're, here's what you've been working on. Here's the type of work that you do, all of that before the end of the year.
Yeah. That sounds about right.
So tell me about this, shooting on whether it's motion forward or for stills forward, right? What is the deciding factor for you when deciding that? And what I'm trying to get at is, if it's motion forward, do you go through production companies and directors and then you look for a still shooter, or do you look for still shooters that also shoot motion so that they can do both?
All of the above. I think so. So basically, if the deliverables are going to, at the end of the day, tell us, is this mainly a photo shoot with a video component or a video shoot with a photo component? So the deliverables sort of spell that out pretty clearly and sometimes it ends up being different than what we started with. So like, again, the one project that I'm working on now, definitely photo shoot with a video component. But now with the deliverables, it's clear that it's going to be a video with a photo component. However, if it's something that I love for a photographer who is also a director, who maybe works with a really great DP, so that everybody's working together. I'm not a huge fan of, I'm going to hire this photographer and I'm going to hire this director. They don't really know each other, but they're both great and they're both going to, share sort of like the shoot. I'm not a big fan of that personally. I'd rather have a, great director or DP who works, closely with an amazing photographer, or the other way around. That's just my personal preference. I know people have success with working with, a super director and a super photographer on the same project. I'm not a fan.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a place for all of that too. It's such a dance. And I think a lot of times when our artists are called to kind of piggyback a shoot like that, it's when the print assets are valued at a much different level than the motion. And there's, it requires the director over the DP. I don't know. It's not, when I see those jobs, I'm like, okay, my artist could absolutely do this with our team and our crew. But I can appreciate and understand, why the reasons that might lead to that decision.
Yeah, I think it's hard for an artist. I mean, I think it's hard for the photographer and the director to sort of, have to worry about, stepping on each other's toes, egos, vision, all of that kind of stuff, and do their job the way they need to do it, Yeah. So I feel like it brings a layer of complexity that we don't really need.
No, I agree. Okay, let's talk about how you find talent and marketing to you. How are artists and reps marketing to you right now and kind of communicating with you and having their work stay top of mind? What is working? What isn't working? What's happening?
So, email is still, king. In terms of like, for what happens with me is I get, tons of emails from reps.
Sorry.
No, it's good. Because what I do is that there's occasionally, so here's the thing. I guess this is probably not just, IPG health related, but probably I'm assuming a lot of other companies have firewalls so you put an email together, Heather Elder, and you have like your, Andy Anderson or whatever in his latest work, and it's a beautiful visual. We don't see that when it comes in. We have to actually, click a button to download the images because we've deemed it safe. Yeah. I don't have time to do that. So it's not even like I see this great image and it catches my eye and I'm like, oh, let me read on. If I have time, I'll do it. But a lot of times I don't. So what I do is I drag all of those vendor solicitations into my vendor folder. And then when I have a project that I'm working on, I go to that vendor folder. I'm like, okay, let me see what has come in. Let me see some, who's doing what. And then I purposefully go and download the pictures and the images and that stuff, and so that's like my approach when it comes to that.
So once you download that, does it then mean it's safe for future emails, or every email you have to download?
Yeah, every email. At least, like I said, at least for us. So yeah, so that's kind of what I do. And I'm a big Instagram person. So I follow, lots of people on Instagram, or if I see something that I like, I try to find out who the director or the photographer is. And then I search them out on Instagram, because I find a lot of times you you get a lot of insight by, stalking what they do on, with their personal work. It's kind of like, it gives you a little bit of behind the scenes of what really lights them up, not just what you're looking for your project, which obviously has to, there's got to be an alignment there. But I also see what else they have going on. Again, we work with, there's a ton of talent out there, a ton of talent. It's overwhelming how much talent and creativity exists. And I love it so much. But at the end of the day, something's going to sort of spark your own, I don't know, personal taste or something like that. And it's a good place to start. And then, of course, we always ask other producers, who have you worked with, or have you seen this? There's a lot of talk. I'm grateful that I'm with a, huge network where we have amazing, production talent who've worked with, pretty much most people who are out there. So you get some good insight from that as well. But I feel like, again, I don't know, email still seems to be where I
feel like it's where it starts for a lot of people.
Yeah,
I agree. It's funny, I was thinking the other day, years ago before the pandemic, I hosted this event called the Community Table, and me and another rep would travel the country to different cities, and we'd host, dinners, and we would have topics of conversation, and then we would transcribe the conversation and share them on a blog, which, by the way, we're bringing back. But regardless, we had one on emailers, because it was such a hot button issue when it first started to be a thing. People were so upset that their inbox was so full, and they were, very put off by the fact that we would just email someone, and, the unsubscribing wasn't easy and all of that. And I think back to that time and the outrage, that was around it. And now how it literally is our only way to share work, because the portfolio show is not happening anymore. And the Zoom portfolio shows are fewer and farther between. So, we rely on email for sure.
Right. And also, I'm sorry, but boo-hoo, it's literally a producer's job to know who's out there and what's going on. So if their inbox is too full, I don't, it's like, were you going to apologize for that?
I believe me, that was my point, everyone's point from the beginning. I think just because it was so new, it was just, crazy.
Right.
How dare you email me?
Exactly. Okay, you know what? At next one, just show up.
Yes. Oh, that would be fantastic. So what kind of trends are you seeing out there right now? Let's talk about photography. What kind of type of work are your clients and your creatives gravitating towards? Is it lifestyle or conceptual, or, they're looking for, I don't know. You tell me.
I'm feeling like we're trying to push a lot more conceptual things. Pharma's its own kind of, thing. And what I would like to gravitate towards is, less of the over stylized, overproduced, matchy brand colors to the cardigan sweater to the dog's collar kind of approach, to more conceptual or more realistic imagery. Maybe there's a little, God forbid, dirt on the ground on the sidewalk, or there's a little, someone has I don't know, not every flyaway of their hair has been retouched. I would prefer to, I'm gravitating to things that feel a little more authentic, either more authentic or very conceptual. But that sort of middle of the road pharma look, I hope everyone, including clients, are kind of just, getting a little tired of that.
Yeah. And I think that word authentic is such a buzzword, and it means something, it constantly evolves as to, what it means. And I think, Gen Z, from a consumer point of view, is really pushing back. They know when something is not authentic and is contrived and trying to look authentic, but not. And they do want that, hair out of place, messy table, whatever it is that is authentic to that brand or that concept, for sure.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, look, a lot of pharmaceuticals are geared to an older crowd but I even think because they might be the parents of this generation or whatnot, I'm hoping that more and more clients realize that people are craving that realistic, approach.
Yeah.
It's like, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of what I'm seeing, but a lot of our directors and creatives at the agency, I mean, lots of really beautiful conceptual work they're trying to push, which I love. I love that.
So when you're working on conceptual projects that require, post-production studio to be involved, do you reach out to the post-production studio first and have them if there's like photography needs, they find someone, or do you reach out to an artist that has an understanding of the post-production and let them choose their post-production partner?
Both. I'm thinking of the last couple of projects I did that way, and last year, and I did two, and one was the photographer chose the post, and the other one I went to the post company and I said, who do you think would be great for this? Who would you want to partner with? And they gave me, a slew of names. So I think it depends. I think it depends on the project and who you like. I'm just trying to think. The first project that comes to mind, the creative kind of knew what photographer they wanted to work with. It was a semi-continuation of something. So they kind of knew what they wanted. And so they sort of chose who they wanted to work with. But yeah, I think it depends. I think it depends on the project.
I'm asking for selfish reasons because we're wrapping that up. And I'm finding that more and more I'm getting calls for pop directly and letting them choose the vendor. So obviously we get calls for, the more conceptual photographers we represent, and then they'll reach out to pop or whoever their vendor is. But it was interesting to me. I'm like, oh, it's happening in both directions. So
yeah, it really is. It really is. I'm thinking of just even other projects that other producers have worked on. And it's kind of like this past one that I'm thinking of at the moment was one of those that they knew who they wanted to use in post because they chose the photographer, or at least gave a couple of options.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it depends.
Well, I think it goes to show how evolving our industry is, right? I say this all the time, but I used to be the first, not me, Heather Elder, but like my role in the industry used to be one of the only stops to solving a creative solution, right? You would also have your sales reps for your directors and things, but it was just stills in motion. And like pretty much you were calling me or someone like me to help you solve your creative solution. Now you have so many options. You can call a post-production house, you can call a photographer directly, you can call a production company, you can call me. Like, just there's so many like entries into the getting the answer that you need.
Right. And I'm thinking about it also, sometimes it's like, here's a photographer that we'd like to work with. They've never worked with the post house before, but we know we want to work with them. They've never met before. And you're just sort of hoping that they collaborate nicely. So that's happened to great success also. And then they form a relationship.
Yeah, which is great.
Like, oh, wow, look, they never worked together before. And now this was a great project. Now they're going to work together, on other things. So, there's some of that as well. And that always feels good as a producer to hook two really talented entities up together.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, let's talk. We don't have a lot of time left. So I'm really interested on your point of view on treatments. Where do we begin? Should we schedule a whole nother call?
Exactly. I don't have the most popular opinion as an agency producer, but I have been vocal about the fact that I think that treatments should be paid for just in some way, shape, or form. We get treatments, as back to the triple bid process. Two people are definitely not going to get paid back for their treatment. in any way, shape, or form. And some people say, well, it's the cost of doing business. Yes, but to some degree. But what the level of detail that we're looking for is not just sort of like, hey, let me give you a one-pager of how I see this going down. No, it's like a whole freaking production book. I mean, it's got to wow people. And I can't tell you how many times we get treatments in and people are like, they're just parroting back what we gave them, or they're throwing everything against the wall and they don't really have a point of view, or, so I feel like the treatment process has sort of spiraled out of control. And either we, go for sort of that one pager, give us your best write-up of how you see this going with a couple of images, or pay for this big elaborate book. And let's not give artists, 2 days to do this or whatever it is. So I feel like it's definitely part of the process that really needs to be wrangled in. And I don't know where it starts because, agencies want what they want. And I get it. They want to have something to be able to ultimately show their client and go, oh my God, look at this. This is it. This is our vision. This is who we want to work with. Look what they put together for us. Look how great this is. I understand that. And nothing better than a great treatment that comes across your desk and you're like, oh my God, this person or this entity gets it. However, it's a little bit out of control, with what the expectations are. So I don't know what the answer is because I know how hard it is for a rep or a photographer to put their foot down and say, for free, this is what I will give you. But if you cough up $1,000, this is what I'll give you. I mean, how do you?
I mean, I don't think you'd get anything
over well.
I don't think you'd get anything different if you paid for it, except a ton of appreciation.
Right.
And I do think the treatments are contributing to, lower morale in the industry and, an overall kind of sourness about the process.
Right.
There is so much time and effort and work and money that's put into it. And by the time if you hear that you don't get the job, you feel like you've already produced it, you've engaged with it, your vision is there. And, a lot of people feel like, okay, how do we know they're not taking my ideas and going to someone else either?
Right.
And I know we have mutual NDAs and there's all of that stuff, but you're having very deep, intense conversations and the treatment outlines it about what the creative is. People get worried. And I think if they were paid, even just something, I think it would contribute to a more positive kind of feeling of appreciation.
I agree.
I think at dinner the other night, I swear this was you and I and Becca talking about this, that we were talking about treatments, we were talking about getting paid. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, why don't you guys just let's say there's 3 bidders and why don't you just take $3,000 of the budget and put it aside and whoever doesn't win the job, they each get, $1,500 or something. And we all were like, oh, that's such a good idea. We should do that. And then you guys both joked that, but then we got to sign them up as a vendor and blah, 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 which I was just like, oh my God, that is a real pain point. It is a real pain point. For $1,500, you're going to sign somebody up for a vendor. That seems ridiculous. And then we were like, wait a minute, what if you gave that money to the photographer who won and then that person has to pay out the other artist? That requires a generosity and and professionalism with everyone involved to be okay. But I kind of liked that idea. I was like,
I did too. I don't want to get in the crosshairs of the photographer who somehow forgets to pay the other two and then they are calling me.
Right.
I don't want to get...
That could be a thing for sure. Yes. But,
I think it's definitely a really good, I think it's a really good idea. And I also think that, I don't know if there's some sort of educational presentation that, say, Heather Elder puts together, that sort of informs creatives what a good treatment looks like, different options maybe of what good treatments look like, what to expect. Because I kind of think sometimes when creatives are reviewing treatments that they don't sometimes know what to expect or what they're looking for. And I don't know. I just feel like there's some education that needs to happen. And also, so agencies have the opportunity to say, this is what we're actually looking for, because treatment just comes out as one big global word. And what you get back is very different. And it makes, it can, I don't know. I just feel like expectations need to be managed on both ends better.
Yeah.
And some education that can be happening around the whole.
I agree. I sit on the board of the Artist Management Association, and we did a roundtable with our members about treatments. And we also did a webinar and invited a bunch of art producers to kind of talk through the process. And we literally just the other day published our kind of considerations for treatments and a bunch of questions and things that people can ask art producers. And we're considering doing a downloadable form for reps to send to the art producers with a bunch of questions that kind of democratize the process. Because if you're filling out this form, or we're filling it out and you're giving us the extra answers or whatever it is, and everybody it's like basically a spec sheet for treatments. And if everybody has the same information and they're all working off the same, it's like you all put so much time in giving us the creative deck and giving us the specs. But when it comes to the treatment, like one person can create like a beautiful, magazine practically. Like an editorial, gorgeous piece, and another person might be doing something completely different because that's their expectation. It's important to know, like all those things it makes a difference, especially like, do you share the treatment with the agents, with the client, or do you just share a couple of pages with the client? Should I create a summary page if that's the case? What type of imagery did you gravitate to from my work? Right? Like it feels like the treatment should be a bit more collaborative because so much time and effort is put into it, and we do not have direct access to the client. We can't present that treatment to the client. We can't give our point of view to the client. It's up to you guys. And so I feel like given the amount of effort and time that goes into the treatment, we're all three bidders are kind of left a little bit I don't want to say left in the dark in that the agencies aren't participating, but it's a bit of a shotgun approach, I feel like.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the other thing is that I feel like, and maybe it just has to be spelled out better in a treatment, but it's like the artist, may write their narrative, show some swipe, maybe, of their work that they, it should go like this or like that. But I know that there are some creatives who really get bent out of shape when a artist puts in other creative inspiration that maybe they didn't create, but inspiring to them. I don't have a problem with that at all. It's like we do that all the time when we're trying to sell something through to
and the directors do that all the time.
Right. Like, here's the approach that we like, just because I haven't done it on my own, or I don't have any, it's something to show. Yeah. I still have the vision and I can do this. I think it needs to be marked. Like, this is a section of my creative inspiration.
Absolutely.
Or something like that. Because let's face it, AI is going to be changing all the treatment stuff too. It's like, I feel like we just maybe need to get, some, just sort of revisit and educate. Okay, this is in 2024 or whatever, almost 2025. This is sort of like a template for what a good treatment is. Yeah. It's sort of like, and get the agencies and the artists to agree that this is sort of whatever the template kind of is looking for. And so across the board, when you get a treatment, you realize what you're looking for. It's like, okay, the artist, the narrative of that they understand the project and where they see it going. Imagery of their own, maybe that supports that. It's inspirational imagery from elsewhere that supports it. A summary page or, whatever it is. So everything within the context is ownable by the artist, but we're comparing apples to apples when it comes to getting. So I don't know. Maybe we work on that. You work
totally
on
agree.
Component.
And you touched on something with AI. Yes, AI is changing treatments, and that I know there was a bunch of artists on our roster that use them when they create treatments to kind of show their vision. But that's a whole nother. That takes time too. That's not just like you type into Midjourney, show me a picture of older people just taking medicine. Now they can ride their bikes. Like, right? Like there's a lot that you have to like fine tune to get that image presentable enough to make it be something that you want to present. So again, more time, and for an artist, their time is part of their inventory and it is often taken for granted, So I agree that there's, needs to be some sort of standardization of what is included in the treatment.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, I would love to know, and maybe you've already done this, the conversation you were talking about that we had the other night at dinner about, taking a couple $1,000s, a few $1,000s out of the budget and then potentially having the production, the winner, the quote unquote, the chosen one, pay the other two for their treatment. I would love to know if that's something that most artists are like, hey, yeah, no, why not? Or, oh my God, no, I don't want to get into that. It's too much. Or, I don't know.
We haven't done it yet. We've just kind of we just kind of came up with that idea the other day. I did throw it on a Artist Management Association roundtable just yesterday. It was a bunch of reps on the call and everyone kind of liked the idea. So whether people take it and run with it, if I find out, I'll let you know. And I brought it up with my roster who all thinks it's a good idea. I think the onus, like you said, has to come out of your hands. People cannot reach out to you and say, Mindy, Jane Smith did not pay me. Your response from the beginning, the expectations from the beginning is that this is, an honor, not an honor. It's an honor code, right? Where we put an extra $3,000, or not an extra, but $3,000 was allocated, and whatever the number is, $2,000 was allocated into the budget for the treatment. You need to bill the artist who won, and that person needs to pay you. If they don't, it's out of my hands. That money went to that person, and this is between you and them, right? So, but I would think as an industry, you'd want the good karma that goes along with that. You don't want to, I wouldn't want to bum somebody out and not having had paid them what they're due in that case.
Agreed. I think, this is between some sort of standardization process and then payment. It's definitely something that I can bring up in our, greater producers. It's like, I know there was something on LinkedIn once about treatments and I spoke up and it was like, I can't tell you how many messages I got. We don't have money in our budgets for that. Not just like my coworkers, but like other just producers that I know. So I don't know. I don't know that it's such a popular opinion on the agency side, but hey, it's worth giving it a shot.
I think everybody I ask or bring it up with is very open to the idea. The reality of it I think it just requires some effort. And I think also the reality is if you have a $200,000 budget, Mindy, and you're going to put aside $2,000 for treatments, you're going to probably tell my artists you have $198,000. You don't have $202,000. Right? Like you're not finding more money. It's being taken away from the production.
Exactly.
But it's a start. It's something. It's like, we're paying it forward to the other people in our industry who are working really hard. So.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's just, it's like, it kind of falls under the kumbaya. Like we all have to look out for each other. It's like everybody's trying to do the same thing. Everybody's just trying to like make a living, do some good work. We have to remember that we're super lucky to do what we do in life. There's a lot worse jobs that we could be doing, and we have to kind of remember that.
Absolutely. So, as expected, I knew that this was going to be a very robust conversation, and I love that we just kind of veered off into our own discussions. I had a bunch more questions I wanted to ask you, but of course, we're running out of time. But there are two very quick questions that I ask absolutely everybody. I've been asking them from the beginning. And I would love to know what your favorite thing to do on a Sunday is. And I bet I know the answer. And if you weren't a producer, what would you be?
Oh, okay. So my favorite thing to do on a Sunday is probably be on my bike. I'm a cyclist. Yeah. So that is that. It also kind of keeps the Sunday scaries at bay, You don't have time to think about Monday when you're, grinding, down the road. But and if I wasn't a producer and money and I had like a ton of money, let's just say.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, yeah, that is required.
Right, exactly. I would definitely be an artist, sort of, like a philanthropist. I'd want to be like a Peggy Guggenheim, or I'd want to be like a Dominique de Menil or somebody like that. I'd want to have a artist retreat. Yeah, that's probably.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Let's win the lottery, Mindy. I'll do that with you. I'll share.
Exactly, me too. It's we've recorded it. It's
exactly. It's bonded.
It a contract.
Well, Mindy, of course, this has been lovely and amazing, and always love my conversations with you. I really appreciate you being on the show today, and I hope you have a good rest of your week.
Thank you, and yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.